So to answer somebody's question, yeah, the images in this are specifically from Yellowstone, although I have tons of polar bear pictures I'd really like to show you, but haven't seen any Yellowstone lately. So the images are from Yellowstone. The cold weather that we're going to go over is applicable to any cold environment. And by cold, right, that's kind of a little bit different depending upon where you live. You know, if you're in from Florida where it's 90 degrees, 40 is cold. You know, if you're from Minnesota, then minus 40 is cold. So we're talking about pretty much from 0 down. Okay, severe cold where it's going to impact your photography. So what are we going to do? What are we going to wear? You know, how are we going to protect ourselves and our cameras from those environments and elements? So that's kind of what we want to cover. So thank you, Canon. Cold weather photography in Yellowstone, that's minus 42 degrees. So what we do is we travel around in what's called a snow coach, and we keep the snow coach at about 32 degrees, right? And we also keep the air conditioning on. And the reason for that is it sucks the humidity out of the truck. Right? So we don't want any condensation, any fogging, or anything like that happening on the equipment. So because we're dressed for the cold, 32 is like, you know, heading to Hawaii. So we're pretty warm in the truck. And if you're outside and it's sustained cold and you start to get numb in the fingers or blue noses, which I've had in the past, you can get back in the bus, right? So you don't have to drive yourself too crazy with it. But I want the cold and I want the snow and everything else that most people in their lives aren't willing to go see. I want to be able to show animals in their habitat that most people, you know, are never going to get the chance to, nor want to, you know, go out and see and photograph. So I can bring that to you. So again, minus 45. It's brutal cold, and I got frostbite permanently on these 2 fingers to prove it. Minus 45 degrees. I mean, it was cold. It's not about where the animal is. It's about where I want it when I'm going to take the photograph. So I see this probably 100 yards away. He's walking through this little creek area that is open water because of the geothermal features in Yellowstone. Right? That's why all those animals are congregating around those areas. But it's not a good picture because I can't see his legs and I can't show off the bison. So I kind of run ahead of him down the road carrying all my stuff. So I find this clearing and I'm like, okay, he's going to hit that clear area. So I take a test photograph, make sure my exposure is correct. Before the decisive moment happens, he hits the spot and we rip off a short burst and I get this crazy animal. So I've never seen this before, this much frost on the bison, except for one other picture I'll show you. But yeah, it's cold. So there. That's a 600 with a 2x at a 50th of a second. So I crawled through waist-deep snow about 100 yards from the bus. And everybody with me, I had a group of 7 people, they're like, we're not going out there. I'm like, I'm doing it. This will never happen again in my lifetime. That bison's not moving. So I crawl out there like this, and I get through it finally, and I start to take these pictures, and I'm soaking wet. I mean, soaked, right? So I peel off all my clothes. They're sitting next to me. And now the people are coming out of the bus because I made this trough for them. Made it easier. I took one for the team. And they're coming out now. And, you know, they're like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know. So I put this online. And the guy said to me, you know, if its head was cocked a little more to the left, it'd be awesome. You know, it's like, shh. So, yeah. So black wolf. I mean, just amazing stuff. The wolves are there. It's the best place in probably North America, maybe in the world, to see wild wolves. But it doesn't happen all the time. You know, I mean, you got to put your time in. I've been going there, I don't know, 15 years in a row now, sometimes multiple trips a year in the winter to try and photograph it. I got caught with a 600 millimeter lens. I'm photographing over here. The wolf pops out of the bushes with an elk leg in its mouth and walks right down the road. So I just watched it because I couldn't shoot any pictures. So the guys who had their 70 to 200s or the people with their point and shoots are like, whoa, check this out. So, yeah. Hence, always keep 2 cameras with you. One with the short lens, which I should know better, and one with the longer lens. So I have what's called a neurochrome. So Tom Hogan, I don't know if you know him, he's for the other team, but he calls them neurochrome. So if he doesn't have a camera and he blinks, it's in there forever. I love the term. It's really cool. So exposure. Let me just kind of pop this up in my PSD since, there we go. Okay, so when we're talking about exposure here for snow, people look at white on white and they all flip out. Oh my God, it's such a hard exposure. It's actually simple. All I have to do is put that where it's supposed to be on the histogram. It's not really a big deal. So how much brighter is white than gray? Well, if I want white with detail, I don't know if you could see this, it's right there. It's +2 stops. So if you break this down, and I'm a big proponent of using a spot meter because I don't want the background to influence anything, all I do is point my spot meter right there on the snow, and I have to figure out how bright or dark is this relative to 0. So a spot meter takes whatever's in that circle and renders it a mid-tone value, right? So all I have to say is, okay, the meter's going to take this, right, snow, and stick it right there in the center. Well, how far do I have to put it to have it right here? If I go +3, it's pure white, no detail in the snow. So it's super. I just point it over here, and with a high-end dynamic range on the newer cameras, you could do almost +3 on a real overcast day, or a sunny day, you could do +2. So I look at it, see where it is on the histogram, figure out if I have to make it a little bit brighter or darker, and then fire away. But I do most of this, like 98% of what I do is in manual mode. Not the M word. So yeah, so I do it in manual mode, because if that light is the same from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't have to change my exposure. It's all the same thing. So I don't care if that bison is in front of a black background, a white background, a green, blue, it doesn't make any difference. Same light, same exposure. You got to burn that into your coconut. Same light, same exposure. Don't change anything. Otherwise, it's a tail wagging the dog. Every time you move the camera and you're in evaluative metering and you change the tonal values in the pattern, the camera gives you a different recommendation. Then you're going to apply compensation to get right back to where you were. Ooh, why do you want to do that? You don't. So I know I can go +1 off the bear, right? Or I can do +2 off, or +3 in a real overcast day, +2.7, depending upon your camera, right there. And that's all I want to do is put that value accurately on the histogram. Now, another fallacy for this stuff is you have to meter the subject. No, you don't. You can meter anything in the same light. If it's all in the same light, receiving exactly the same incident quantity of light, and I put that where it's supposed to be, then the other stuff's where it's supposed to be. But it gives me a baseline. I don't have to worry about the size relationships between the subject and the background and the different tonalities. That's what causes everybody's dilemma when they're doing exposures. So people go, oh, I'm afraid to go to Yellowstone because of the exposures. It couldn't be easier. Every day there's snow. Every day there's white. Just put the white where it's supposed to be. So what I don't want to do is make the white push up against this edge. Then there's no detail on the white, right? So what I do is I push it to the right, which makes everything brighter. And then what I do is, in post-production, I select just the area down here. And then I'm going to extract the detail down there. And I'll show you some examples in a moment. Because I want a foreground, middle ground, background. I want to lead the viewer's eye through the photographs, right? So I can't do it with light because it's flat. I can't do it with shadows. But what I can do it with is detail. So I'm going to pull out detail here. There's my foreground. There's my middle ground. My background's not going to have detail, so your eye stops on the subject. So the more you know what to do in post-production and how to extract that detail, the better off your images are going to be at the end of this whole thing. That's key to all this stuff, guys, being proactive. It's not about where the subject is. It's about where you want it when you're going to depress the shutter. What did he just say? Yeah. OK, so here's an example for you. So bison in the snow, right? We got the perfect exposure. I don't care how you meter it. Here's the deal. It's a 100 to 400 zoom. It's the same light. It's the same exposure. Don't change anything. But I guarantee you, if you're in automatic mode and you shoot this, and you dial in whatever comp you need to get that, and then you shoot that, what just happened? Camera sees all the dark. It says, uh-oh, I'm going to make it light. Now you've got to put compensation back in to get to what you already knew was the correct exposure over here. Same light, same exposure. So you can do it in what's called aperture priority, right? And just push the AEL lock. So Canon now has an H function, auto exposure lock hold. So you point it at the snow. Let's say I got a spot meter. I set it for +2.7 because we know that's the correct compensation. And I push the AEL button. It now stays in the camera until the camera goes off. It's locked in the camera just like it is in manual mode. And I can also take the compensation dial if I need to and override it just a little bit. But if the light changes again, a cloud comes over, I point it back to the snow, push the button again, it locks the exposure, and I can shoot the pictures. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? I mean, that's the key to all of it. Same light, same exposure. Don't let the camera tell you this is correct, and then you have to continually chase it. So we got the fox in the snow, and all I did was pull out a little bit detail on the foreground, right, and let the background kind of go out. Doesn't look like that on my monitor. Trust me. So same thing here, right? So this is full sunlight. So what's a sunny 16 exposure? I already know what it is. I don't even have to meter this. So sunny 16 came from back in the film days, right? You know the little box, that 4-letter word film? Remember that stuff? Right? So there's a little cheat sheet that used to come in there. So it said if it's full sunlight and you have a given ISO, it's 1 over the ISO at f16. So if I have 200 ISO, it's 1/200th of a second at f16, right? So I'll show you a chart in a second. So I'm just setting the exposure in the camera. I already know what I want. I set it in the camera and I close down 2/3 of a stop because it's really bright white. So 1250 at f8 at 200 ISO, shoot anything white in the sunlight and it will be perfect. So we go to Florida. not exactly cold weather, but we go to Florida and there's white birds. So we teach these classes and people are like, I can't get the white birds right. What are you talking about? It's the same white bird today as it will be next year. Same as it was last year. Same sunlight, same white bird. If the exposure was right last week, it's going to be right today. You just got to stop and look at the metadata and say, you know what, this is the right exposure. But you don't have to remeter it. You already know what it is. Put the 1250 at f8 in there and rock. Change the dial if it takes off. You go 3 clicks up, 3 clicks down with your finger, equal clicks, opposite directions. I'm at 2500 at 5.6. Now I can freeze the bird in flight. It becomes easy if you do it methodical. But it's because you're locking the exposure in the camera and you're in control of it. If you give the camera the control, you're behind the 8-ball, guys. You're never going to do it successfully. You're always going to be behind. You're chasing, it's the tail chasing the dog again. You're spinning in a circle. What I also look for when I'm photographing animals is I want that right front foot forward. I want the separation between all the legs, and I want that implied sense of motion in the photographs, right? So we got that little lean, and then we got that bobcat, and that rock coming out of his head over there is not by accident, right? It's not out of his head. It's over here. If I shot a second later, it would be. So I'm not shooting just what's happening. I'm looking for everything. You know who's responsible for all the stuff in the viewfinder? You are, not the camera. Camera's not depressing the shutter. So you got to scrutinize everything. Ooh, look, the cat's over here, but right there's a clear background. So I scurry up 5 feet, I wait for him to hit that spot, and I rip off the pictures. Again, sunny 16, hard edge shadows. Anytime I see a hard edge shadow in a clear blue sky, I already know what the exposure is. Right? So we're just banging it off. And I love shadows and graphic shape and shooting in the cold. For me, that stark environment, that white environment, gives me a huge graphic sense in my photographs, and I absolutely love it. So here's the sunny 16 thing. Okay, so you think they can get me over here, but here's what we're looking at, right? 200 ISO, f16. So it's 1/200th of a second at f16. If it's 400 ISO, it's 1/400th at f16. Now here's the key. All of those are exactly the same exposure, but it changes the outcome of your photograph. So it's not just I got the correct exposure, it's what picture do you want to paint, right? So if you're looking over here, 3200 at f4. Fast shutter speed, no depth of field. The other way, I have 100th of a second at f22. A lot of depth of field, no shutter speed. So which combination of those numbers is going to give you what you want? So I'm constantly changing that. Believe it or not, there's great blue herons in the snow in Yellowstone. Kind of weird, right? You don't usually see that too much. So the bird takes off. It's a 6-foot bird coming at me at a 45-degree angle. Is 5.6 going to work? No. So if I double the ISO, I could double the aperture, right? So over here, you got 1600 at 5.6 at 200. So I take 200 ISO and I go to 400 ISO. Now I have 1600 at f8. Fast enough shutter speed, enough depth of field. So once I get the correct exposure, all I have to do is take my index finger and go 3 clicks to the right, take my thumb and go 3 clicks to the left, or 2 up, 2 down. Makes no difference as long as it's a compensatory change in opposite directions. We have exactly the same exposure. Life is good. Here's a trick with the cameras too. If you push the ISO button, and assuming everything is in thirds, push the ISO and you go 200, 250, 320, 400, 3 clicks, right? Now take either your shutter speed and your f-stop and go equal clicks the same direction. Same exposure. So it becomes methodical, and you don't have to think about it. You don't even have to look through the camera. 3 clicks with my ISO, 3 clicks with my shutter speed, fire away. It's repetition. I keep pointing this over there. So we got the snowshoe hare, right? Crazy story with the snowshoe hare. It's like one of the most elusive animals you'll ever find in your life in Yellowstone. So we're driving in the bus, all of a sudden the gal on the bus goes, snowshoe hare. So we all stop, we go, wow, look at that, and then it goes, bounces away. We're like, wow, that's a lifetime shot. My guide in Yellowstone, 20 years, has only seen one like that in the wild. We drive 15 feet, she goes, snowshoe hare. Now we're going, yeah, sure. And there it was. And it sat there for a half hour. A half hour. So I got slow shutter speeds with the snow streaking, fast shutter speeds with it, frozen. I did verticals, horizontals, 4K videos, slow motion. I covered everything I possibly could as fast as I could because I didn't know how long it was going to be there. But I put together like triptychs because it's cleaning itself, so it's got see no evil, hear no evil, I mean, it's really, really cool stuff. So there's a board in the Madison. So we put this on the board, snowshoe hare. Like within 10 minutes, I'm getting emails from everybody. Where'd you see the snowshoe hare? I could tell you where it was. I don't know where it is, I didn't Velcro it to the ground. So yeah, oop, they got me. So I mean, it's crazy stuff. It's really cool. Oops. So make sure you maximize the potential, right? We don't have these subjects all the time, and you can't say in wildlife photography, by the way, I'll come back tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. The animal might not be there, the lighting conditions might change, so we have to maximize whatever we have in front of us. So here's the waterfall in the winter. That's the 600 with a 2X. That is this. Pretty cool. I'll get this right by the end of the show. So yeah, it's pretty neat, right? A lot of detail, crazy cold. Same thing, right? So there's the straight 600, okay? And there's the 2X. And then I ran behind the car because the thing got ornery. And I had 8 people like laughing, hey, he's trapped behind the car. So whiteout conditions, yeah, it could be fun in Yellowstone. This was the first hour of the first day with the group. So we get there, it's a whiteout going across Swan Flats. The truck in front of us says, follow us. Yeah, sure. So like lemmings, he goes off the road, guess what happens to us? We follow him off the road. So now we're stuck there for an hour waiting for another vehicle to pull us out. So we're like, okay, we got that out of our way, let's move on. But yeah, I mean, it can get hairy conditions, right? So obviously if you shoot this just straight with the camera, it's gonna come out gray, right? So I don't want it to look gray, so I gotta add light to the exposure. Here's just a pet peeve with me. You'll see people who shoot in aperture priority, and the camera will give them a recommendation, right? And then they're gonna say, well, I underexposed it 2 stops. Well, you didn't underexpose it. You made the picture darker to make the picture look correct, right? So I don't like that terminology. It's like if you shoot this, I'm not gonna say I underexposed the image or overexposed the image 2 stops to get it. The picture's not overexposed. What I did was make it 2 stops brighter than the recommendation to expose it correctly. That make sense? Kind of semantics, but from a teaching point, I think it makes sense. So this is the older vehicle, right? And you can only go in the interior of the park in Yellowstone if you have tracked vehicles. They wouldn't let you in with anything else. It was a limited amount of snowmobiles where you had to get these tracked vehicles. You know, in the summer, they change them out. So this is the truck that pulls us out. It's a French Pernod. It's a big jobby that goes in the Alps. So if you get stuck, you'll see one of those. Don't get stuck. And this is what they just went to now. So the reason they just went to this as of last year, no more track vehicles in the park, is because they don't chew up the road as much. They're way quieter, right? So we can approach the animals without having this crazy track situation and everything. And they're less bouncy for the guys in the back too. So it's a much cushier ride. The problem for me is they're much smaller, so we can't take as many people anymore. So, but it's a much more wraparound view. We could see almost 360 out of the truck, so it's more convenient for us. And we only put 6 people in there, so it's easy to get in and out. So yeah, so minus 40 degrees, a bit nippy. So we have a lot of clothes on. This is North Face Himalayan Parka. So that's one of the suggestions for clothing. It's an excellent coat. I've worn it like minus 30 degrees, just t-shirt underneath. It is really warm, right? So for a top layer. By the way, the warmer your core is, the warmer your extremities are gonna be. If the core is not warm, your fingers and toes are gonna freeze, right? So that's a big deal with this stuff. And then I got the balaclava on with the little snoot for your nose, and I don't care which balaclava you buy, they're all gonna lie to you and tell you, oh, your glasses won't fog up. Oh, yes, they do. And there's this little stuff called, it's called cat crap, right? So don't take it out of your little box, wrong one. But you rub it on the glasses as like an anti-fog, you know, and it sort of works. Some people used to use toothpaste, you know, like we did for dive goggles and stuff, so I don't know. One guy has a snorkel. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I should take a picture of that and put it on Facebook. Another guy says, I swear, the guy says this, he goes, I shoot with the camera upside down, so my breath goes away from the eyepiece. I'm like, what do you, how? Do you stand on your head? I don't know how that works, but. So base layers, right? We can wear synthetic base layers or we can use merino wool. And now the big mainstream for all these high-end manufacturers is to go back to natural fabrics, right? Wool. So wool's great for many reasons. It's super warmth, it breathes. You don't have to wear different ones as frequently because there's like an odor barrier and stuff like that. So you need a good base layer. Do not, under any circumstances, wear cotton. Okay, they call cotton a death fabric because cotton gets wet and it's not going to, wick the moisture away, and you're going to get sick and cold and have big problems. I always try and get stuff with vents in the front, right? So that when I'm layering the equipment, I can zip it down and stay a little cooler, zip it up, stay warmer. You know, if I'm hiking, I got to be able to vent, right? So there's pit zips on your shells, those are there for a reason. It's not just they want to charge you an extra $100. That stuff, well, they might, but it works. So synthetics, okay, this is called a compressor suit, and it's from a company called Mountain Hardwear. It rocks. It's not crazy, crazy dollars. I would always get the one with the hood so I can wear that underneath and pull the hood up if I want, right? But it's Primaloft, I think, or Primaloft Gold inside, which is one of the higher end synthetic fabrics. So it will wick moisture away. If it gets wet, still maintains warmth. And because it has some abrasion resistance on the pants, it works perfect as an outer layer as well.
What's the brand again?
It's Mountain Hardwear.
What?
Mountain Hardwear.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Mountain Hardwear. You can see it on the leg there. It works. It's excellent. I mean, highly recommended. Mountain Hardwear makes really good stuff at a little bit higher end, but it's not as crazy as some of the other manufacturers.
Are the pants lined?
Yeah, the pants have the same stuff. So the pants lined, they are. They have the same Primaloft fabric as the jacket does. So I'm going to put that base layer, those merino wool, like long john material, then put those pants on, right? And then I have a shell. So like my Gore-Tex shell goes over that. And I can wear that down to minus 30 degrees and my legs aren't cold at all. It's pretty amazing. So if I buy one pair of pants that's specifically set up for a specific temperature, that's a lot of money wasted, right? I want as much versatility as I can with this stuff. Nor do I want to buy this stuff 5 times because it's big bucks. So make it as versatile as you can. Those shell pants, that's the most important thing you're going to buy as far as clothing. A shell jacket, not this one, I'll show you in a second. A shell jacket and those pants. That Gore-Tex shell goes on for wind, it goes in for rain, it goes in for everything. If I'm crawling through muck, those pants are always on. This is goose down, right? So it's high-end goose down, and it also has some synthetic in the shoulders and things like that where areas would get wet. So this is from a company called Arc'teryx. Real super high-end stuff. For me, it's the best stuff on the market, but it does come, they're proud of their stuff. But yeah, it really, really works. You can't wear down as a layer underneath this when you're hiking because you're going to sweat like a dog. It doesn't wick as easily as like a synthetic fabric. That's where that other coat comes in, right? That compressor coat, that's a synthetic insulation. So this is the shell, right? So that's the shell jacket and then the shell pants. So I can wear them running through the muck or running through the snow in cold weather or whatever else I need. And it blocks the wind as well, which is a huge advantage. That wind will, seriously get you. Canada Goose Snow Mantra. It's like the warmest coat on earth, but it's also heavy, extremely heavy. I had one for about 6 months, and then I sold it because it needed its own suitcase. So the problem is we go to travel halfway across the world, or I'm going up to photograph polar bears, or go to Yellowstone, and there's one of my 2 bags. So between that and those Arctic boots, you got to take a little point and shoot camera because you can't take anything else. So it's extremely warm, but it is really, really heavy. So I ditched that. And then I went to this stuff. So this is the version 3 of the Himalayan North Face Parka, right? And there's a lot of these manufacturers who produce clothing now that is more fashion-oriented, right, than real-world use-oriented. So make sure that you don't buy that stuff if you're serious about this. You're not going to be warm. It's going to ruin your trip. And you're going to end up buying 2 coats instead of 1, right? So this is what I'm now wearing. So this is called Mountain Hardwear again, right? Little logo on the chest there, and it's called an Absolute Zero. So this puppy is 800 loft. It's Q-fill down, which is a waterproof down. It has a waterproof exterior, which not really necessary because at those temperatures, it's not really going to rain anyway, right? So I don't really get that whole thing, but it works really, really well. It's extremely warm, but if it's windy out, somebody better tie an anchor rope to you and latch you onto the bus because you're going to go up there like a Macy's Day float. So that thing is huge. I mean, really huge. You put that on, you're like, oh, it's pretty big. Now, if you're going up to the Himalayas, you can wear this whole thing. So it's the same top, but it's a one-piece with the bottoms. Yeah, and you'll cook. And you need sponges on the bottom to catch all the moisture. I mean, that thing will cook you.
Do you wear the compressor suit under that?
No, this is for only if you're doing lunacy stuff. If you're summiting Mount Everest or stuff like that, it's way too warm for anything you're ever going to do. I mean, you could wear that in minus 60 degrees and you're going to be roasty toasty. So you could sleep in that thing for a little while, but you'll go numb and it won't marry anyway. So there's a line of gloves that somebody introduced me to that they started to sell in Austria. It was made for the Austrian and German army, right? So that made sense to me because, wow, if they can fire a weapon with it, I could probably use it to fire my camera. Okay, so I went and I ordered them. And then last year and everything like that, I became, or 2 years ago, I became the United States distributor for these gloves. B&H sells these gloves. These are the best cold weather gloves you can possibly buy for doing photography. There are 3 pieces. There's a liner like this. This is the durable liner. Okay, it's windproof. It's basically waterproof. So this slides in this piece. So this is a goatskin leather shell. Goatskin because it stays supple even when it gets wet and then dries out. So your hand goes in there. You can peel back the top. You can use those fingers. You can just take your thumb and your index finger, stick that out of the glove, right? There's a slot on the back where you can put a hand warmer in. You can put a hand warmer over here. There's a bunch of areas you can do it. And what some of the guys have done is take toe warmers because they have an adhesive on the back of it, and they stick those in the top so that they don't move around, and it works perfectly. I mean, that's a really great idea. So again, there's 3 different liners. There's a merino wool, there's one that's pretty thin, and then there's a durable liner, right? So 3 different temperatures with that. Then there's this, and then if it really gets crazy cold, there's that. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to get these yet in the US. They're still making them. So this is called a polar hood. It's a Gore-Tex hood that goes over the whole thing. So you can't really use that to photograph with, right? But for snowmobiling or for keeping your hands in, and then when you do want to shoot something, you can pull your hands out and you can photograph. Now in extremely cold weather, like minus 50 degrees, if you're going to photograph baby polar bears, you don't want your hands exposed at all. It's like less than a minute, you're going to get, frostbite on your hands, right? So what they do is sometimes is they run a cable release into the glove, right? So they're moving the camera with their left hand, which has a glove on it all the time, and they're just firing the camera from a cable release inside the glove. Or now they have wireless controls, right? You could take your iPhone, sit out in the middle of the Arctic, and fire your camera if you want to, But Canon has all, wireless stuff hooked up well, and they have an app for your phone. So you could run it from there if you need to.
What's the name of this brand?
The glove is called Heat 3 Smart Glove. Heat 3 Smart, and they do sell them at B&H. And they do have them in stock, I know, because they place an order. But they rock. And the only reason I ended up even carrying them or becoming the US distributor for those things is because I tried them, right? And I have a drawer full of gloves. If anybody's interested that don't work, call me. Because there's $1,000 worth of gloves in there that everybody says they work and they don't work. It's like boots, right? So these are Baffin Extreme, B-A-F-F-I-N, Extreme boots. They're, for me, the warmest boots that are out there. They have like waffle liners and all kinds of stuff inside, and they're crazy warm. So any of those ratings, by the way, don't believe those. It's good down to minus 100. Yeah, if you're jogging. If you're staying still, sitting there for an hour waiting for something, no. And I would never know because I'm not going to be out in 100 degrees below 0. But the thick soles insulates it from that. Cabela's has these Arctic boots that are pretty well. And then the other ones that I used to have were these Sorels. These are called Caribou, Sorel Caribous. And those work pretty good, although not as cold capabilities as the Baffin Extremes. But just if you're going to do this stuff, buy it once. Also bear in mind that if you do these really cold weather trips and you live in Florida, you're only going to use this stuff twice, and you don't want to invest $2,000 in gear, you could rent it a lot of places. Right? So when you go up to do polar bears, they rent the stuff right there. So $200 goes into $2,000. So this is another company. It's called Stagger Mukluks. And the guys in Yellowstone swear by these. All it is moose hide with a rubber bottom, and they put 2 layers of wool shearling in there, right? It's tough holding the sheep still, but anyway. So they tuck that in there. You send them a copy of your footbed. Tell them you want the one with 2 layers of shearling. They're about the same price as the other boots. And those things they wear in minus 40 degrees. And they weigh nothing. And you can crunch them up and put them in a pack. So those are really cool. The problem is those bottoms are soft, so they're only good for walking on snow. You walk on rocks with that, it's like the Princess and the Pea. You're going to feel every pebble out there. So be careful with that stuff. Crampons, spikes. This stuff is a must if you're going out on ice conditions or if you're working in, in deep snow and things like that. So there's a company called Catula, right? Catula. They make Micro spikes, which are these that I recommend. The other ones are the crampon ones that are up on the top that fit every other boot. And there's another company now that makes these ice trekkers, and they make ice stabilizers. And you want the ones with the little diamond treads, that's the one on the bottom. Those are real small. They are exquisite for ice. Even if you live in New York City and you're walking in the snow on icy conditions, those are the ones you want. You don't want the ones with the big cleats. The ones on the bottom will blow your mind. So they're diamond tread, right? And they're from a company called Ice Trekkers. I think Yak Tracks might have bought them. Socks. People always ask, what about socks? What do I do with socks? So I always wear a liner, okay, whether it's a merino, not a merino, a silk liner or a synthetic liner. Wear the liner, kind of helps wick everything away. And then I'm a big fan of smart wool. Smart wool rocks. So you got the silk ones on the left, you got the synthetics over here, and then smart wool socks in the middle. Just a tip for you, okay? If you can order boots, try them on, right? Or get a little bit size bigger if you plan to wear warm socks with them. So like I have hiking boots, 2 pairs, exactly the same. So one is a winter pair where I use really heavy expedition socks and those liners, right, that I can probably wear down at like 20 degrees without an issue. The other ones are summer boots that are half a size smaller because I wear those with thin hiking socks, right? So I can't cram the thick socks into the other boots. It's just not going to happen. Toe warmers, hand warmers, all that stuff, that's a gift from above. It's heavy, right? That's the problem. You take 10 of these things on a trip with you, it's made from iron oxide, it's fairly heavy. But they're definitely worth their weight in gold. So the trick to this stuff is take it out of the pack for like 5 or 10 minutes before you stick them in your boots or put them in your gloves, right? It's the oxygen that's going to activate these things. So if you just take them immediately and stick them in your boots, it's going to take way too long to heat up. So you want them to heat up slightly and then put them in there. Do not put them against your skin. We had a girl on the trip with a wonderful rectangular blister on the back of her neck. I mean, just a big giant blister. And it says right on the pack, do not put on. We can only lead the horse to water. Battery heated gloves. These things are unbelievable. And there's guys now and gals who are shooting in extremely cold weather who will use these inserts in conjunction with those other gloves I was telling you. So rather than buy the whole system, they buy the leather shell, right, with the shell mitten, and then they put these inside. Now you're running around with like more lithium batteries, and TSA will love you. But they seriously work. But there's a guy on the trip, he's got like 4 pounds of batteries, man. He's got a coat with that stuff in there. And I'm like, dude, if there's a lightning storm, don't come anywhere near me. But they work, and it's GYDE. So they're actually made for motorcycles, but it's a big boon for guys who are doing baby polar bears and sitting out there. The problem is if the battery dies, you're up the creek. So I don't really like things that are battery operated, for real cold weather, because my survival depends upon it. So if I get stuck out there, that has no insulation value at all if the batteries die. None. That's not good for me. Hats. So you have merino wool hats, right? Stuff like that, like kind of, skull caps or toques they call them. And then you got the trapper hats like the one on the left, right? So the hats like that, you can only wear if it's really, really cold because you're going to die. I mean, the thing is crazy hot. And I can tell you if you get one that's full rabbit or a fur or synthetic fur that looks like rabbit, don't wear it when you're photographing snowy owls. Note to self. So my wife said, wow, that would have been cool if it took it off your head. No, I would have been in the hospital getting stitches. So yeah, so Harriers too. The Harriers don't like that either, man. Be careful. So when you do balaclavas, there's a bunch of different styles. You can get the Darth Vader one on the left, right? And then you can kind of go. Mountain Hardware, again, makes one, or this one's, Mountain Hardware. That's got this little brim on there that's pretty cool. So it kind of keeps the snow off. Or if you have sunglasses, kind of shades the top a little bit. And they also have slits right here. So your glasses will slide right in there rather than underneath and kind of get snug on your glasses and make them uncomfortable. So you can get smaller slits, wider slits, bigger, longer necks. You can get polar fleece. Get the stuff with the wind block, right? Don't get any polar fleece without the wind block. Mountain Hardware again. Yeah, Arc'teryx makes a good one too. Yeah, and Outdoor Research, or next one. So yeah, there's an 11 to 24 shot of me wearing a beaver hat. Somebody bought me that in the Arctic. I don't know if I should say that, but it's a real beaver. But anyway, it's like insanely warm. I mean, like you'll cook, crazy cook. Look like that guy, Johnny, what's his name from that?
Bravo.
Yeah, Johnny Bravo. So sunglasses. You gotta wear sunglasses. You're gonna blow your retinas out of your head. I mean, it's extremely bright, all that snow and everything. So I'm a huge fan for Maui Jim. I've tried like every other pair of sunglasses, and Maui Jim has this gradient polarizer that just rocks. A lot of people don't like using sunglasses when they photograph. I can't see the numbers in the camera. And that is true sometimes. So you gotta cock the camera on a slight angle. So Canon, I don't know if they did this on purpose, Eric, but you take a 7D Mark II and you hold it this way, you could see the whole back of the camera perfectly in a horizontal mode. Turn it vertical, you can't. The other cameras, you can't see it horizontal, you gotta turn the camera vertical. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I wish they'd leave it that way, because more pictures are shot horizontal than they are vertical. But you just gotta cock it a little bit to the side, and you can see it. So it does work very well. And I always wear glasses anyway, so it's no difference if I take these and I put prescription sunglasses on. But seriously, unless you want cataracts, if you're shooting in those snowy conditions, you better have good sunglasses. And then somebody asked me, whoa, what about sunscreen? Yeah, all that sun bounces off that snow, you're gonna look like a strawberry by the end of the day. So the best sunscreens out there have zinc oxide and titanium dioxide in them. It's clear, you put it on, you don't look like Casper, it just kind of blends in your skin, but it works immediately as you put it on. The other stuff you put on, it runs off, that stuff's crazy. It's fairly pricey, but it's the best stuff in the market. So zinc oxide with titanium dioxide. Surprised I could say all those syllables. Knee pads. If you're gonna kneel on rocks, you're gonna kneel on ice, and you don't wanna rip up your $300 pair of shell pants, put knee pads on. You can go to Home Depot, you can go to Lowe's, you can, Black Diamond, Arc'teryx, they all have knee pads. But it's a really good deal to take those with you, especially, just kneeling on a rock, never mind the pants. I mean, your kneecaps are not too good. So that's a big deal. Tripods, you gotta be careful with these tripods. I've seen more tripods break in cold weather than I ever have before. And here is exactly where they break, right there, right? So what ends up happening is you got the legs splayed out like this, and you'll get guys who lean on the tripod when they go to get up. So when they're real cold, that thin carbon fiber gets brittle. So you gotta really be careful. Even if you push the tripod into the snow, the legs are trying to splay out. So what you have to do is pull these stays out. Pull them out. So when you push it down in the snow, the legs splay out a little bit, right? And the tripod's not gonna break. I can guarantee you. We had 4 of them on one trip because people didn't listen. And they all cracked right there. Different things you can use on the bottom of the tripods. So Gitsu makes these snowshoes, so you can put that on there, right? So the tripod won't go 3 feet down to the bottom of the snow. Or you have spikes and claws that you can click on really right stuff and all kinds of other stuff. And some of those are interchangeable between different brands. But again, just different things to make that stuff solid. Here's a tip for you in crazy wind. So whether it's Arctic winds, right? Catabatics, you get 100-mile winds come off glaciers, or a bunch of other stuff. Don't tighten the horizontal knob on your gimbal heads. If you guys are using a long lens, do not tighten that, right? Because that big lens acts as a sail. It's a lot of surface area. So if you loosen that up, the wind will just keep spinning it. If you lock it down, and then you make your 600 into 2 300s, and yeah, CPS is extremely happy, but you won't be. So I use this now. It's a really right stuff fluid gimbal head. Because I'm doing a lot more 4K video, so it allows me to have 3 different levels of dampening. There's these little switches on here, so I can push those in, and there's actually hydraulics that kind of come into play, and you can pan really, really smooth with it. So that works really well. There's also another thing out there that's really cool. This is called the Unique Ball. I'm sure they sell it here. I started taking this any place in the world where weight is a restriction. So if I need to take a gimbal head and a ball head at the same time, that's a heavy, heavy scenario. And with weight restrictions and all the other stuff, I'd rather take another lens. So I take this. This has 2 balls inside, right, of each other. So this one, you open this clamp and you level this, right? Now it's perfectly level, without leveling the tripod legs. This only allows the camera to go 2 axes. I can go left and right and up and down. It won't let me do this. So if I set that leveling base up perfectly here, I can now pan 360 degrees any direction and everything's perfectly level. And the dampening control on it works really, really well. So I can even do video off that. There's no real tight movements. It's just super, super smooth. So I take this one little thing and it works perfect. and they came out with a bunch of accessories like pan heads. The cross clamp on the left allows me to use either a wide angle or a telephoto. So a telephoto lens has the foot like this. The camera has it like that. So that red knob needs to point forward. So because it has a cross clamp now, I can put either or on that head, and it works phenomenally well. It rocks. I actually sold 2 of the other brands that I used to use, and I just got this, and now I use it for going to the Falkland Islands or any place that there's weight restrictions. Camera bags, big deal with camera bags. I want to be able to use these bags in the field. So guess what? I'm not going to take a roller bag and hump through Yellowstone in 3 feet of snow. Not going to work too good. And I can't get somebody to carry that stuff yet. So what I do is, this is called f-stop, right? F-stop gear. The big deal about this is these ICUs, internal camera units, ICUs. They come in a bunch of different sizes. So I put the stuff in here. This slides directly into the top of the backpack. The backpack opens on the inside like this. And what I do is I always put the rain cover on, because the bag's always laying this way down in the snow, or penguin guano, or whatever else it is. So then I just have to wash the rain cover and not the bag. The other cool thing is I can leave the waist belt locked down, spin the bag around, just lay the bag like this. Don't even have to put it down. Open the back of the bag, take out what I want, close the bag, slip it around my shoulders, and keep shooting. So this is what I use. And I've never, ever had any more issues where I have to worry about taking camera gear on planes. Because if the gate wench says, by the way, you can't take that on the plane, I'm like, okay, fine. So all I do is pull out the inside, stick that in the overhead of a CRJ, and I gate check the shell. Or if you have a roller bag, any roller bag from any manufacturer, if you already have it. You could just get one of these internal camera units, put your stuff in there, check it in the roller bag. When you get to the gate, right, all you got to do is pull out the inside, gate check the shell, and life is good. You have your camera equipment with you all the time. So that's a huge advantage for me, and I don't have to sweat it anymore when I travel. I mean, that's like major stress, more so than trying to get here 3 minutes before the presentation. Crazy, 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 crazy stuff. So in super cold weather, you could just blow the snow off. It's not really going to damage any of your stuff. You know, all the stuff that I use from Canon is basically weather sealed. I don't really have any problems with it, kind of getting a lot of stuff on there, but, you know, if inadvertently I nick the O-ring when I'm putting the, you know, the camera body on, you know, or whatever it is, I mean, I'm utilizing this stuff consistently all day, so I want to make sure that, you know, I'm going to maintain the integrity of this gear. I don't want to be in Yellowstone and, hello, FedEx me a, you know, not going to happen. So I'm using these lens coat raincoats. I think they're really good for snow. They work really well. All I'm trying to do is keep the snow off. The back is open. If the snow starts blowing in the back, all you got to do is scoff a shower cap from your local hotel next time you stay there and just throw it over the back of the camera. All it's going to do is keep the snow off. You could still work everything really, really well right through that. You know, you could pull it off, change your batteries, your CF cards, or whatever else you need. So just the shower cap works real well. If I'm shooting in crazy inclement conditions, blowing sand or it's, you know, howling at the beach and stuff like that, then I'll use a fully encapsulated rain cover like the OPTIC or, you know, or a think tank, something like that. But for the most part, these rock. Real small, they roll up, I take them with me, 2 different sizes, and they work really well. So again, even though it's a blizzard out, I still got my crazy sunglasses on. So these lens hoods, right? Again, that's another one from Lens Coat, and OPTIC makes one. I kind of prefer the Lens Coat one. But I travel with those now rather than travel with those big solid hoods because they take up too much room in my camera bag. That lens hood is so big that I can't put other equipment in the bag. So I don't even take those anymore. All I do is I take these. They roll completely flat. I stuff them in my checked luggage or in the front of my camera bag. When I get there, I just roll them on and, you know, and it's going to work fine. All it is blocking the sun. You know, you could put a cardboard tube over the front of that. But it works really well. Sea to Summit bags. Okay, these are a must. So anytime we go from a really warm area to a cold area, and, you know, more so the other way, I'm always using these bags. You go from real cold to real warm, that's when you get condensation. So I don't want to be bringing this stuff into the hotel room, you know, bam, thing fogs up, you're doomed. I mean, it's in there for a while till that stuff acclimatizes. It's not going to be pretty. You know, everybody else is going to be shooting pictures and you're shooting through a fog bank in your lens. And it can condensate on the inside too. So what you do is you take the flash cards out, you take the battery out, right? And then you put it in that stuff sack. And the stuff sack is waterproof, but it's thin-walled. So now I bring it in the room and it will acclimatize very fast. And once it gets the ambient temperature between the equipment and the inside of the room, I can take this stuff out and clean it off or change lenses or do whatever I want to do. If you take that gear in the room and you take the camera off the lens, it's going to get condensation on your sensor. So the big problem with that is any dust particles that are on there are going to adhere to that puppy like concrete. Now you're in trouble. Now you got to go through the wet cleaning and all the other stuff, or deal with a big spot on your sensor for the rest of your trip. So be really careful with that stuff. Cameras are always face down when I change lenses, right? Never face up, never face this way. I mean, it's always face down. As far as I know, gravity's my friend when I'm doing that. But these bags, I have them in every different size. 35 liter will fit your 600 in a camera. 20 liter will fit your 70 to 200 or 100 to 400. So I have all different size bags. And there's multiple companies. There's Sea to Summit, there's OR, there's a bunch of them out there. But get those bags. They really work. They're also awesome when I'm in the truck. So if I'm going in the truck with everybody else and they got gloves and hats and all the other stuff, I can keep my stuff separate from everybody else's stuff. I just throw it in the bag. If I need it, I take it out. I can throw extra hand warmers in there, or whatever else I need. This is a completely waterproof bag. It has what's called a T-zip in there. It's completely 100% waterproof. So those ICUs I was telling you about, I chuck these in here. So I could hump this out in the snow. I could take it to Antarctica and run amok through zodiacs, whatever I want to do. The thing will float. It actually has a valve in there. So I blow it up with air like this. Sorry, I close it, and you could chuck it in the ocean, and it'll still float. Try it with somebody else's stuff first. So back to pictures. It's really cool. And the only way we're going to get this kind of ethereal look in the photographs is when the temperatures drop really fast. So, I mean, it's amazing. You got leading lines, and you can get all these really cool images, and, So there. So I'm over here. The bison's to the left. I'm like, well, it's just a bison in the snow. It doesn't really work for me. I need a sense of scale. So I see the tree. I run down the road again. There's the tree. Hold the camera there. Figure out the correct exposure. And I just wait for the bison to hit that spot. So it's inclement conditions. I don't expect the picture to be crystal clear, right? But it's Yellowstone in the winter, and part of the reason I do that, it's a struggle for life. It's like going to Africa. It's the closest you're ever going to get to Africa in the United States in the winter. I mean, it's, eat or be eaten, or, feed yourself or die. I mean, so everything scavenges off everything else. The wilts killed this, so you're going to get a bobcat feed off it, a lynx feed off it, coyotes, eagles, crows, ravens, yada, yada, down the food chain. So crazy stuff. 6 wolves howling in a blizzard, right? Again, it's a 600 with a 2X, long lens. So the people with me are like, we're not going to see any detail in the wolf. It's not about that detail in the wolf. It's about 6 wolves howling in a blizzard. So the guy doesn't shoot the picture. So I show him this at dinner. He goes, I should have shot that. I'm like, well, what's the worst that happens? Throw it out. You know how you could tell a professional's computer? If you look at the D on here, it's like worn down. Delete, 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 delete. Shift, delete, delete. So yeah, 2 wolves. They're not going to see detail, right? So if the wolves were stationary for somewhat, I could shoot this stuff at a 60th of a second and streak the snow. That's really cool. So you have to figure out how to make lemons into lemonade sometimes. If you got stationary subjects and it's snowing like heck, lock the stuff down on a tripod and shoot it at a 60th of a second or thereabouts. And you'll get the streaking snow, and it will tell the story much more than frozen flakes in front of the camera. So this is shaking. I mean, it's crazy blizzard out, and this guy's just shaking the stuff off. So again, it's not about the detail in the fur. It's about telling a story with your pictures. You know who does this, by the way? Other photographers. Nobody in the real world does that. You ever go to the museum over here and go, look at the brushstroke. If the guy went this way. The pixel police take your picture, download it, right? Open it up and go, there's 2 pixels blinking in the bottom left. What's your point? So this guy wasn't happy, but he's so hungry, he's eating fur from a bison carcass. Crazy. Ugh. So again, just the wolves are there, and then the coyotes come in. And you always see 2 coyotes. One's watching out while the other one feeds, because the wolves will kill the coyotes. They won't eat them. They'll just kill them, and they'll leave them there as a mark to the other ones. So the raven's here, the eagles are here, and then I'm not even looking through the camera, right? So here's another tip. You're shooting about infinity. So I don't care what f-stop I'm really using. If I'm at infinity, I know I got enough depth of field. So I'm shooting this stuff at like 4 or 5 or f5, because that's the sharpest part of my 600, because I tested it. Imagine that. So I'm just sitting there like this, and when the birds take off and I see the eagle clear, I just rip off a bunch of pictures. But pretty cool stuff. So it's just locked on there. I'm not really focusing per se, I'm just kind of focusing right here. You know, I'm not in like continuous focus or autofocus, just locking on the carcass and ripping them. Heat shimmer. So I see all these people come from all around the world, go to Yellowstone and try and shoot this stuff at 100 yards in the sun. Nobody's getting sharp pictures. And they're all going to blame it on the equipment. So they go out and they buy 800 millimeter lenses, and I'm going to shoot something 100 yards away. Oh yeah? That's 100 yards worth of atmospheric conditions. And on a sunny day, even in the dead of winter at minus 30 degrees, you're picking up heat shimmer. And you could see it. Put the camera in live view and you'll see the whole thing go like this. Well, what do you think that's going to translate to your imagery? So if you're laying on your belly like that and you're shooting all that stuff, you're shooting through 100 yards of heat shimmer. If you raise the camera to the subject, now maybe you're only shooting through 20 yards of heat shimmer. So it's a compromise. Well, I want to get low on the subject level. You want fuzzy photos? So, okay, make the compromise. Raise the camera up a little bit, and you know, at that distance, it's not that much of a problem anyway. Or, guess what? That carcass is going to be there. Those coyotes are going to keep coming back. Wait for the light to drop, the temperatures to cool. I don't want to get the heat shimmer anymore. If you shoot the eagle in the tree, it's tag sharp. No heat shimmer at all. Shoot them on the carcass, you're going to throw the picture out. Can't even shoot it. I'm telling you, it looks like you shot it through a shower curtain. Don't cut groups. So if you have groups of subjects, I try not to cut them in half unless there's like a zillion of them, like wildebeest or something that's huge herds. Then it really doesn't matter. But I'm trying to tell the story. It's not all about making the subject the biggest you can in the viewfinder. It's about telling stories, setting up the compositions and making it work for you. What color is that foot? Yellow. That's the only tundra swan in the whole park with the yellow legs. So what did they do? They caught him and tagged him. Well, we're going to track that guy. I'm like, okay. So again, just sense of scale. We got the rock. They're off to the left side, so we're trying to make the compositions work. But brutal conditions. We're traveling down the road first in the morning, okay? I have these trucks before everybody else. I got them for 14 hours a day or 12 hours a day, same driver, same trip, and that's what I want to do. So we get out before everybody else gets out, and guess who's crossing the road, or guess who's out at first light? The wolves. Last guy out gets nothing. Same thing on a dive trip, right? You don't want to be the last guy in the water. Everybody else just spooked everything down there. So get out first. And then we got the wolves crossing the road, and they stop and they check us out, and it's amazing stuff. So this one's not tack sharp. This is an older picture, but there were 10 wolves that attacked this elk in the middle of the river. And they were swimming across the river and stuff, and these two black ones, awesome, man, screaming yellow eyes. And I know I'm getting close, but I got to tell you this story. We're coming down the hill from Gardner, going to photograph, in Lamar Valley. A black wolf comes out of the woods. This is truth. The wolf jumps over the hood of the van, hits the antenna, right, and goes like this, and stares at me as it went across the hood of the car with big yellow eyes. So Wim, my driver, said, that thing just checked you out. I'm like, I know it did. It was like, what? It was unbelievable. I mean, like, you can't even make that up. It was just mesmerizing, like a spiritual connection. And he's like, thank God we didn't hit it. Can you imagine the paperwork? So yeah. So again, small subject, big background, right? It's about telling a story. So here's this big expanse that we call Hayden Valley, snow everywhere, huge drifts and stuff like that, and you got this little crazy red fox zipping around. Again, bison herds in the snow, eagles in the trees, tack sharp. Guess what the exposure is? Same as it was yesterday, because it's the same dang light. Yeah, so hopefully there's not a rock under there. You see him go like this. Boom. But yeah, the fox are really cool. And the more you do these trips, the more you start to understand the mammals. You understand the behavior, which equates to much better pictures. So you're going to see the fox goes like this. It stops, kind of cocks its head like that, right? And then it puts its head down and the ears go forward. And then it's going like this to zero in. That's not the time to say, I think I'm going to put a converter on my lens. So you see people do it. All right, let me check my flash card. Yeah, game over. All this wildlife stuff, it's he with their eye to the viewfinder wins. You take your eye away and go, hey, I could show you a whole bunch of pictures if only I stopped talking. So yeah, but beautiful sceneries, you make the most of what you got there. So these tracks, just that beautiful leading line, it looks black and white, but it's a color photograph. And I left a little blue cast in there, to just kind of give it a little cold connotation. But you could see detail everywhere. So part of the trick to this stuff, even though you're pushing it to the right, is know how to pull out all the detail. And unfortunately, a lot of people come on these trips with me, and they're just not savvy enough to do that. It's not all about this is what it looks like in the back of the camera. It's okay, how do I maximize the potential? How do I extract all that detail? And with this digital world, that's a whole nother realm to this. I want to choke the guy, by the way, who said, oh yeah, digital's less money than film. Who said that? Who's the guy? Just a camera at a week club and a flash card and a hard drive and the software and So yeah, same thing. This is Yellowstone Lake, right? So just check this out for a moment. You take that out of there, picture's not the same. Right. That's more of a snapshot. So I had to scale these down to like 1080, kind of like weird format. There's more to this that I shot with striations. But anyway, that's the foreground, middle ground, background again. Gives a sense of scale, pulls you right through the pictures. Look for all that stuff. Same thing here, it's just beautiful fog with the light starting to come through it, And the only way you're going to get that is when the temperatures are crazy. That's the photographer tree. Everybody who goes to Hayden Valley photographs the tree. So you could stay there for an hour, and the light will change, the clouds will change, and get, a whole flashcard full of different images. Or a lot of pictures that look like everybody else's. So this was beautiful. So Nick Filters used this as their greeting card. They saw this, they called me up, and they're like, man, that's like insane, So yeah, that was minus 20 degrees, no wind at all. So if you go to Lamar Valley, that's what you'll get. Hoarfrost all comes up from the river, forms on the trees, and it is beautiful. I mean, stunningly beautiful and cold. Lamar Valley is typically 15 to 20 degrees colder than the rest of the park. It's kind of like a valley, so you get an inversion, the cold air sinks. This is Yellowstone River, really awesome. So this is an HDR. When I try and do HDRs, I try to make them look natural, not artificial, right? Not my goal. It's up to you. Some people will saturate it to colors I've never seen on this planet. I don't know if they shot that on Mars or where they shot it, and people seem to like it. And then they jack up the saturation, print it on metal, and it looks cool, but not reality for me. Just, whatever floats your boat. Same thing here, beautiful light, So all I'm doing is shooting through the trees with the wide angles. I mean, it's just stunning imagery. It's mind-blowing. So people go, well, how come you like the cold? Why? Bob will tell you. These guys, they always ask me, don't you go anyplace warm? No. I'm not really like, a South America kind of guy. Just not my bag, 100 degrees and, dying. But beautiful. That's a HDR, first thing in the morning. So we get to go to Yellowstone and we photograph all this stuff. And there's your starburst at f22, and we're doing. Saturated. Yeah, it's saturated. That's pretty much how it looked. It was crazy color, insane color. Just lit up like just sick. What's your point? No, I'm just kidding. No. Yeah, it was saturated, yeah. Yeah. So this is the 11 to 24. I love the lens. So Canon's got this extreme wide angle. It's called Rectilinear. The trick is don't tilt the lens up or down. So if you do this with it, you're going to pick up a little distortion. So what you do is raise and lower it like this. So you just kind of get down, bang, horizons are perfectly straight. It's an unbelievable lens, but I mean, really cool. So here's something really cool too. If you have an odd number of aperture blades, you get twice as many starbursts. So because that lens has a 9-bladed aperture, I get 18 rays coming off there. If you have an 8-bladed aperture, you're only going to get 8 rays. See, it was worth coming, I told you. So again, there's the 11 to 24. I'm like 4 inches from the base of that tree. So I'm shooting the thing at f22 to get the starburst right between the tree. Pretty cool. Yeah, that's where I got the frostbite. Minus 44. Yeah, so in my infinite wisdom, I have a hole in the glove. I'm like, one more picture, one more. And that was it. Permanent capillary damage. I can't do pulse ox on this finger. It's always itchy. And you'll see me sitting there like this all the time. It's a pretty cool picture, though. I got 9 more. So yeah, really cool. Really cool. This is a 10-foot photograph in Germany. They used it for Photokina, and a company bought it called Snow something. I don't know, whatever. So they made a 10-foot mural, and it was like the big hit at the show. Everybody's underneath it taking pictures of themselves with a giant, So yeah, but look at that. Frozen eyelashes. I mean, really cool stuff. So I'm laying on my belly photographing this guy, and it's not moving. It's stoic. It's sitting there like it's frozen to death. But look at the insulation quality on the animal. It's not moving, right? Yet the snow's not melting. So amazing animals. Look at that thing. We called this guy Fabio because he had that mop top. So it's only the real old ones have that. There's not too many left around that have that big kind of crazy hairdo. But yeah, he was, I mean, just massive, big. Look at that. Unbelievable. So the reason you're seeing this is he was laying down. So it's like your tire in the winter. I think you get a flat spot. So he's got to go up, pump a little blood through there, I think, and fill that side back out on there. But crazy cold conditions, man. I mean, that stuff just fires me up. It's amazing. And if I go, how many of you in here are willing to do that? Probably 3 of you are going to raise your hand. But it's really, really cool. Yeah, do it. I mean, it rocks. Not a lot of people get to see that stuff. Look at that, crazy cold, right? So when it's real cold, we hang around the thermal area up near Old Faithful because they're not stupid. That's why they're there. That's the only reason those animals are in that area because that's the geothermal area where it's a little bit warmer. So they lay down in those areas and they can get some heat on them. But the cool thing for us, photographic-wise, is what? They get that frost all over them.
I guess that's from the steam.
Yeah, exactly. It's the steam freezing on their coats. Yeah, yeah, crazy cold stuff. Look at that guy. That was awesome, man. That was like insane photograph. I just saw this guy standing there, just like not moving, like just frozen in stone. So from here, I'm going to go photograph next March muskox in the snow in Norway. So that's the next thing from doing this crazy stuff. So we got to take sled dogs out and then snowshoe out to photograph muskox. So yeah, coming down the road. They're starving, man. They're eating anything. He's trying to get the marrow out of his spine. I mean, desperation times. Yeah, they're mousing. Yeah, fox all curled up. Coyote. Yeah, just crazy. I mean, just got his nose tucked in there, out of the wind, just sitting there. Bighorn sheep. Big bighorn sheep. This rocked. So I've been fortunate to get these bobcats every time for the last 6 years. So I knew where the den site was, and now everybody knows where everything is over there. So because the winters have been not as severe, right, the last couple of years, the litters have been exploding. So the bobcats on the Madison River have learned to hunt ducks and swans. So they sit on the branches above the river, and then the snowbanks, they wait for the mallards to go by, boom, they dive in. So everybody's going by, and everybody's looking for the bobcat, because most people know where it is now, and they're like, we can't find him, we can't find him. So I asked the driver, give me your binoculars. So I look, and all of a sudden I see something in the snow that doesn't have snow on it. Everything else has snow. So it was just this little rise in the snowbank. And I'm like, that's the cat. I guarantee that's the cat. So we wait there a half hour, and all of a sudden the cat gets up. I'm like, son of a gun, where we go? So he stalked this mallard for a half hour. He's sitting up there, and we got him diving in the water, grabbing the mallard in the river. It was like a highlight of a career. It wasn't just me there. It was other groups, because everybody gets on a radio. They got the mallard. It's okay. I mean, it's not all about me. You know, so again, same thing. So this one, the left foot's forward, but I always want that sense of movement in the pictures. You know, it's really cool. So look at the camouflage. So I'm looking, I'm going, it's got to be here. And there he was, just sitting there, not moving. Really cool. They're like house cats. So it's a sunny day. Nobody sees the cat. And I go, you know, 2 years ago, we saw him under that rock in the middle of the afternoon when it was sunny out. So let's just kind of go. So we go 8 miles out of the way. We go over there. Guess who's sleeping under the rock? It's just like a cat in your window. It's habitual. Frozen feathers. So minus 20 degrees, the only way he could fly is he has to immerse himself in the warmer water and then flap and get the water off his feathers.
Why the water's not frozen?
Because it's geothermal. So it's from Yellowstone. Yeah, so it stays above freezing. That's why all these animals are there. Really cool. But I mean, that's frozen solid, man. It's unbelievable. He goes like foreground, middle ground, background. If I do this, the picture's not going to work. And I really don't want his head coming up here. So I got to wait for him to tuck his head down or come closer to here. So little things that are going to make the biggest difference in your images. This guy's just nibbling little buds. So the fires chased all the moose away, killed all the habitat. They had no place to hide. The last 2-3 years, moose have been making a big comeback back to Yellowstone in the winter. This year we saw, I think it was 12 moose. 3 years ago, 2 moose. 4 years ago, 0 moose. So because the habitat's coming back after the 88 fires now, the moose are coming back, you know. It's really pretty cool stuff. Beavers in the winter. What? He's not stupid, he's sitting on his tail. That stuff's cold. Raccoons. Raccoon in Yellowstone is a giant thing. You say raccoon, everybody goes out of their mind. What? I don't know. There's not a lot of raccoons, but we saw 2 raccoons this year. And that's because of the wolves changing the whole ecological system over there. Great blue herons. We got great blue herons in fishing. As long as there's open water and there's trout, they can stay there. Smart ones probably head for Florida, but cool ravens. Golden eagles. So he's eating a mallard. So you don't want to know what that is. It's an aborted elk fetus. but yeah, so everything's there. Nothing goes to waste. The bison on the bottom left over there is coming away from over here. I got it. This is the last slide. So it's coming all the way from the left. So I see him coming. I set the camera up, figure out the right exposure, just wait for him to walk in it and fire off the picture. Perfect timing. Perfect. So there you go. So Shoot the Light's the company. If you want to check us out, that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not here to advertise who I am. So.